Hare Krishna. Welcome to today's interview. And with us today is His Grace Mukunda Datta Prabhu, our head Pujari, who has been serving in Krishna Balaram Mandir since more than 30 years now. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for taking out the time for our interview today. We would like to also tell you a little bit more about Prabhuji before we start. So, Prabhu is from Switzerland, and he joined actually in Vrindavan. So it's a very interesting story. So we'll jump right into it. So thank you very much, Prabhu, for coming.
Welcome. My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So first of all, we would like to know a little bit about your childhood in Switzerland. How was it like?
Fine. First, I would like to offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and the previous acharyas, Mahaprabhu and Sri Radha Krishna, and all the devotees. Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Because by their mercy only we are able to engage in devotional service, and by their mercy hopefully this session can continue. Yes, regarding my childhood, so I was fortunate to, well, of course, to take birth in Switzerland. Materially speaking, it is a very beautiful place and organized and clean, but of course there's a lack of Krishna consciousness there, lack of God consciousness. But yes, I took birth in an aristocratic family, especially for my father's side. And my father, he was educated, he spoke 5 languages, and he was a chief of the reception of one of the most important 5-star hotels in the city of Zurich, which is the biggest city in Switzerland, where many film stars and politicians and sports stars used to come and stay there. And his father, my grandfather, he was the manager, the president of one of the first insurance companies in Bern, the capital of Switzerland. So I had a good life. And my grandfather, he was having practically a big kind of mansion villa in the center of Bern, and he had a big American car, so it was opulent upbringing. So whatever we needed, we got in our childhood. And the studies were, of course, going on, and I was good in the studies. And I had also interest in learning about spiritual life, and I had faith in God. Of course, I was going to the church, and some knowledge we got from there. But basically, I was a little disappointed from the church, from the priests, because they were not looking very happy, they were not so friendly, except there was one priest who was jolly and friendly, had a good relationship. But the questions I had, they could not really answer to my satisfaction, And so therefore I was reading more books about philosophy, specifically Indian philosophy and also Chinese. And I was interested also in the culture of India, mostly, and playing tabla or trying to learn and sitar, and I had decided one day I should go to India. And as the studies were going on, then I had to go to do some activity in this world. So my father suggested that I work in the bank, although I was more interested in languages, but he suggested I do some bank training, and so I went to the bank for training. At the same time, my main passion in life, besides studying, an interest in spiritual life, was playing soccer. And I could have played I was playing in a club, and I could have played in a junior national team and professional football also. But then when I was 19, I decided to give everything up in search of the absolute truth, in search of God also.
That is definitely a very big step. I mean, such an opulent upbringing and still leaving everything aside, going after the spiritual truth. That is very amazing.
Yes, and then So then when I was 20, I got, on my birthday, for my 20th birthday, I got some money from my parents, 2,000 Swiss francs, which was a big amount. And I thanked my parents, and then I told them I just want to go for a little traveling. And then I went hitchhiking and with bus and towards Italy, and then Greece by boat, and hoping to meet some persons also interested in spiritual life. But I was basically disappointed. So therefore, in Greece, I decided enough from this traveling on the road, and I just took the plane to Mumbai.
Mm-hmm.
So when I reached Mumbai, I had a little shock, because Switzerland is extremely clean, and everything is punctual and organized, and the people are basically quite friendly. So I reached in Mumbai. It was not very clean, the least to say, and the beggars are there, and the slums, and a big chaos, and a lot of noise and pollution. So I was a little disappointed, because my picture of India was many yogis and transcendentalists and musicians and a spiritual place. That was the side I knew about India. But of course I'd heard that it is not so much developed, but I didn't expect that in the big city. So I decided to go to Delhi and to go to Varanasi. First I was thinking to go to Varanasi, to the university there, and do some studies there. But I met one devotee, and in Switzerland I had met the devotees also for Rath Yatra, the first Rath Yatra in Switzerland, 1979. And I had met them another time also, and then I was impressed by them, but not ready to join. I didn't understand enough, but I had read one beautiful verse in one of the pamphlets, Trinadapi Sunichina Tororapi Saishnona Amanina Amadanina Kirtani Sadahari, that we should always chant the holy names and then be always humble, tolerant, and respectful. I really like that verse. And so because always I felt we should be humble, respectful, and so even in my childhood I used to get money for my birthday. I used to buy some toffees and chocolates and distribute to my friends, not just keep for myself.
That is actually very unlike children who are brought up in a very aristocratic way. They're usually quite arrogant and have a big ego, but it's very surprising that since childhood you were attracted towards being humble and appreciating others and doing things for others.
Yes, and actually I never had any fight with anybody before I joined. Only 2 times I got angry. One time with my sister, because she was playing with me. She was 2 years older, and she put a stick in my ears and bothering me, and somehow she went too much inside and it caused great pain. Maybe damaged a little bit also, and then I just slapped her. And one time my mother was not happy with me, and she had a kind of stick with a round for the carpets, to clean the carpets from the dust, and she was trying to hit me, which she did many times in our childhood when we were naughty. At that time I was 16, so I just took it and I told her, don't dare to do this anymore, because I was grown up, and I threw away that stick. And she told my father, but he didn't say anything. And so anyhow, when I came to India, then in Mumbai, so I was a little disappointed reaching Mumbai, and I thought, let me quickly go to Delhi. So I went to the train station, and there one devotee was there distributing books, and I was not interested in any books at that time. And but he gave me a mango. He invited me to the temple in Juhu, but I said, no, I am thinking to go Varanasi or maybe Vrindavan. I heard of a place, Vrindavan, near Delhi. And he said, yeah, you should go to Vrindavan. It's nearer, and it's a very beautiful place, small place. Varanasi is also a bigger place, so you better go to Vrindavan. So then I went to Delhi, saw the temple there also in Delhi, small place, Lajpat Nagar. I was a little disappointed there also, from the devotees, or Indian devotees, and not so welcoming. So I went to Vrindavan, and with the bus, and the bus driver, just seeing me being a Westerner, they stopped at the Krishna Balaram temple and said, these are the Westerners are staying here, so you may also maybe go there. So I went there, stayed in the guest house, met with the devotees, and they explained the philosophy, and then it was to me clear that actually this is a path I should take. And then they were saying, well, if you want, you can join in the temple. I said, and then it's free, and you get free food also, free prasad, sanctified food. I thought, well, that's interesting. And then at that time I had a longi and some t-shirt and long hair and a beard. And then the devotee told me, you just have to change your clothes like we have, and you have to shave up. So I thought, well, not a big deal. So I shaved up and then joined, and I was there in the next day in the Bhakti program, new Bhakti program.
So how many days did you stay in the guest house before joining?
Just 3 days.
Just 3 days?
Yeah.
And before joining, you did not really come with the idea of joining?
No idea of joining any ashram or any temple. No idea.
So was it really the philosophy, or was it the idea of you get free place to stay, free prasad in a nice place? That
No, I mean, they were explaining the philosophy, and I felt that it had some substance.
So
And
you wanted
then,
to try out more
Yeah,
and
so I wanted
get
to
to
try
know.
out more. Yeah, I had money.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I didn't have to worry about the staying and the food also. I could buy whatever I wanted. So that was not the thing. But
You just wanted to see how the life,
experience
the
in the
experience.
ashram. Yeah. Yes.
So then, so you joined the ashram and then you started chanting, and how did that happen? Like, usually people take it very gradually. They slowly but surely start coming once in a while, but you pretty much started from one day to the next. You were in the Bhakta program. So how was that?
Well, must be Purva Samskar, previous impressions.
Definitely.
Because actually right from childhood I was interested in God, in God consciousness. Of course we had to go to the church, although I was a little disappointed. But I felt there's more than just the material life in this life. And I had faith in God, although I was not so much impressed by the church and the priests. But I had faith in God right from childhood. And even though most of the people at that time already, they were not so much interested in God, not even believing in God, but still I had to believe in God. And I was eager to search. So then when I came here and I saw everyone is actually interested in spiritual life here, every single person. Whereas in the West, hardly anyone, in the traveling, hardly anyone was interested. But here, every person I talked to was speaking about the philosophy, about God consciousness. So I thought, well, that's the place I should be. And then I followed the program. Okay, you get up early morning. Wow, that's interesting. 4 o'clock in the morning. 4:30, there's a program there in the temple. I attended, and then they told me, well, there's like a rosary in the West they have to chant the names of God. So here is something similar you can chant, and we chant the mantra. And I had heard about mantras, from other persons who had been to India. So did Maha Mantra I had heard from the devotees also. But I was not so convinced at that time. But then they said, well, you just chant as much as you can. And they told me the Maha Mantra, and I had actually very good memory. Right from childhood, extremely good memory I had. I was good in the studies also. And so then I learned the mantra, of course, is easy mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Because I was very eager to gain knowledge in my childhood also. For example, I knew all the countries in the world and all the capitals of all the countries in the world, and so many things. I used to remember. I used to see one person, talk to one person, I could remember that even after 1 or 2 years. Extremely good memory I had at that time. When I was taking one time some drugs, some LSD, then I realized that this is actually not good for my health and for my brain, and I immediately stopped. I thought that is not good. So anyhow, I quickly learned, and then the different songs which are there. And then, I knew English from the school, but in Switzerland we have German, French, Italian, and Romansh. But in the school everyone is learning English, and I was learning English in the school, understanding quite well. So I came here and then I just spoke more English, but then I thought I should learn a language also. Already had an interest from before. So I bought one book, Learn Hindi in 1 month. So I got that book, and then I had the Hindi book and the English book, and I started to read hand in hand, both books. And the first book was Beyond Birth and Death, Janma aur Mrityu se pare. And still I remember the first page. There Prabhupada writes about that the first step in spiritual life is to understand that we are not this body, that we are spirit soul. But it is, then Prabhupada is writing also, but it is not so easy to realize. So that really made an impression on me. And I thought, well, I have to realize. Because we had heard about God, about that we are not this body. And but to realize that is another thing. So I thought, well, let's try. And so then I learned the songs which are there also very quickly. And we were cleaning the temple, some physical activity, and it was a little hot in the summer, and there was no AC, there was no air cooler, and half of the time there was no electricity. We had a generator, but because the school was closed, and we stayed in the Gurukul, so when there's no electricity, and then no inverter, no generator, so we are sweating it out. But it's a kind of, I was 20 years older, so it was a kind of adventure. Okay?
The heat was an adventure,
yeah.
Okay.
So nighttime we had one chatai on the ground, a bucket with water, 2 cloths. We put one inside and put it on the ground, on the chatai, we lie on that, and then the second cloth on ourselves. And then little breeze is there.
Oh my God.
So that was the experience.
And right now we are in June, so it's difficult to even imagine with being without fan and without any kind of air conditioning.
And coming from the west.
Coming from the west, yes.
But anyhow, I managed. And I stayed here and I chanted from the first day maybe I chanted 4 or 5 rounds. The second day maybe 8. The third day 16 rounds.
And then from then onwards there was no looking back.
Rounds. No, and I didn't miss one day 16 rounds.
Wow.
Since then. Not one day I missed 16 rounds.
More is okay, but not less.
No. Mangalatikos I never missed. I mean, then traveling, then after 1 month, because I had a landing visa 1 month, I had to go to Nepal. Because I was so eager and young, and of course, and some enthusiasm was there. And even then on the train or whatever, on the bus in the early morning, so just singing the songs which I just learned, that was my Mangalatik. And then I got a 3-month visa, and I applied for an entry visa also, because I didn't want to go back and forth. So I came here, I went to Mayapur with some devotees, and then came back to Vrindavan. After 3 months I went to get the entry visa, and I stayed here with the entry visa. And after maybe 7-8 months, I realized, wait 1 minute, I should maybe contact my parents. They must be worried. No news from the son.
Their son just got lost.
Yeah. Later on, many years later, actually, my sister told me, my parents never told me. But after maybe 8 months, I wrote a letter, 10-page letter, of my realizations of Krishna consciousness and the necessity to adopt that. So we had spirit soul, we belong to God and whatever. So 10 later page, I wrote to my parents, and by Krishna's mercy it reached, because at that time the postal service was not so good, and many times letter didn't arrive or we couldn't receive letters. Calling was also practically impossible. Here in the village there were 2 phones, one in the guest house and one in the post office in the center, in Loi Bazaar. Otherwise no phones. Maybe 1 or 2 rich people had phone, and you have to book the call, trunk call, but difficult to get through, especially to the West. So, and then of course they were very happy, and then
Yes, so you were telling your sister told you something afterwards.
Yes. Many years later she told me they were very worried, and even my sister didn't know where I was, neither my brother. So they called the police in Switzerland that our son is lost. And after maybe 2 months they had called the police. Half a year, no news. So then they had no choice, and they contacted Interpol, international police, to search me all over the world. But I was in Vrindavan. Interpol didn't make it to Vrindavan. They were not so fortunate to come here. Although Agra is nearby, Taj Mahal, but Vrindavan was not so well known. Taj Mahal was
not
well
at that
known,
time, yeah.
Not at that time. For the Westerners, only for the Indians, of course. But some Westerners actually had come at that time also to Vrindavan, just like me. By the way, hearing about Vrindavan and coming here by Krishna's arrangement also. And
So when did you go back? Did you go back? Where did you go after that?
Well, for 3 years I was here, and I learned Hindi. And actually,
In 1 month?
Huh?
In 1 month you learned Hindi?
Well, actually, it took me maybe 3 months.
Okay.
Because 1 month I here, 1.5 months, and then I got the visa, and I came back. And then after that, I was maybe almost, Yeah, then I went back, and I went again. I was here for 3 months. I went back to Nepal, so I'd learned some Hindi. By that time, I came back again. And then I was here maybe for 5 months, and I had learned some Hindi. Then the devotee said, we should go on Sankirtan and distribute books. So I was going in Rajasthan, UP, and Madhya Pradesh to distribute books. And they were collecting life memberships also. At that time, it was also an adventure, because we didn't have car. We were going by bus, local bus and train, just taking the trunks with us, and even hardly any money. We got books, and the manager told us that you sell the books, and then with this you can just get, you can buy your food.
Okay. So this was a major change. 1 year before, you were living a comfortable life in Switzerland with all the facilities. And then 1 year later, you're wearing Indian dress, you're chanting the Maha Mantra, getting up 4:30 in the morning, going and distributing books.
Yes.
That's a big change.
Yeah, that was a big change, definitely, yes. Yeah.
And how did your family take it when you met them afterwards? How did they receive this change in you?
Well, because actually I was always good in school, and I was in sports. I was good, and I was like my sister was okay, but I was like in the family, even in other families, relatives, I was one of the stars, because I was going to be in the bank and playing football. Only I had one uncle who was he was a sprinter, and he was also like a kind of famous. He was Swiss champion in sprinting, and even in 200 meter he got the European gold medal in sprinting.
Okay.
But otherwise there were hardly anybody who were really prominent, so they had great hopes in me. But then so when I left everything and I took the other path, they were a little disappointed in beginning. But then I explained the philosophy, and I explained that I'm a monk and I'm distributing books, I'm trying to help others. Then they were kind of appeased. And they could see that I had some principles I was following. I had given up eating meat, which is
a big thing in the West.
West, and I was vegetarian, and I explained also why. And I was studying the holy scriptures of India, and it was just, my father is very intelligent, but it was beyond his head to understand what I was saying, some of the things. But then he could appreciate that I'm trying to go do something good. And I was not smoking, not drinking at all. Even before I was not interested, but only sometimes I was taking.
But it's very normal in the West
in
for
the West
people
is
to be doing that. Yeah.
But then I gave up everything, so it was impressive to them. And they could understand that actually I'm still a normal person.
And they were supportive then?
Yeah, and then they were supportive actually, And actually they used to, even now they're sending money every year or second year. So, and by that I can live nicely. I don't have to depend on the temple. Of course, I'm a priest also, I'm doing ceremonies, but I don't have to depend on that either. So I'm depending on Krishna.
And he is arranging through different channels.
Arranging through different channels. So I can.
So Prabhu, after 3 years of staying in Vrindavan, then where did you go? You went back to Switzerland, or?
Yeah, actually what happened, because traveling with the bus and the train, and at that time there were no temples in UP and Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. So we are staying in different ashrams, and sometimes we were not even to cook ourselves, so we had to eat in the life members' houses, which was nice. Sometimes they're also not there, then we had to somehow eat sometimes in the restaurant also, vegetarian restaurant, but spicy. And then I had liver problem, I got malaria, I got jaundice, and so I lost a lot of weight, and I was not feeling so well. But then also I realized that before I was very active, I was doing sports, almost professional, so I have to do something for my body. Then I started doing yoga and pranayam, which I do up to this day, of course not so much, but I was doing like every day like half an hour. And then I was able to manage. But then at one point I felt I should just go back to Switzerland, and then actually the management also agreed, and then I was going back to Switzerland after 3 years. Then I recuperated.
Then you stayed in Switzerland? Or?
Then I stayed in Switzerland. And Zurich temple, there is a small temple there of Gaunitai and Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. Small deities, that big deities of Gaunitai. Prabhupada's time also they were actually installed in Geneva. And Prabhupada visited Geneva. And so then they wanted to install Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. So they needed a Pujari. In Switzerland at that time they were famous for book distribution. They were the best book distributors in Switzerland. So they also sent me a big book distribution. But it was not in India. I used to do it, and I could speak to the people, the philosophy, and as I was learning, that's how I became very fluent, quite fluent in Hindi. So I could read, I could speak and understand. But in the West, I mean, you cannot really speak the philosophy much. Nobody has time. So you become almost like a salesman. So of course, if you're sincere, then you can sell books. But because it was not really my nature to just distribute the books like this, so I was not so successful. But I was distributing some books, but not as many as others were doing. I was just like average, even maybe below average. But in the morning I used to chant so many mantras which I had learned from Bhagavad-Gita. I used to, I almost learned half of the Bhagavad-Gita by heart. And other shlokas from the different scriptures. And then the Sankirtan leader, who was one of the biggest book distributors, Rohini Sutta Prabhu, he thought, well, you're always chanting mantras, this mantra, that mantra, and maybe you should be a Pujari.
Rohini Sutta Prabhu is also Swiss?
Yeah, from Switzerland, yes. And he was one of the biggest book distributors in Europe, from Switzerland. So he suggested me to become Pujari, and they needed a Pujari for the big Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, which they wanted to install. And then I joined DT department there, and I was happy in doing that, better than going out and meeting materialistic persons and trying to push the books on them.
So you felt naturally inclined towards the deities.
Yes. And then, so then I did that, and I quickly learned the process very quickly, and then the devotees, they were appreciating my seva, and and I had a good relationship with all the devotees. Yeah.
One question, Prabhu. You also do yagyas and ceremonies. When did you learn that?
That actually after being in Switzerland, so actually I had an invitation to come to New York, and then actually just for a visit. They wanted me to stay in Switzerland, but I had some invitation, and so I went there. And then actually they needed a Pujari there also. And they saw that I could speak Hindi. So they wanted somebody to preach also to Indian community.
In New York?
In New York, yeah. Yeah. I was one place, Forest Hills, which I was to visit and there and meet the different families. Just recently, I had some reciprocation with some of the devotees who were children at that time, and now they're grown up. And one of them sponsored one outfit here as we were going to make the announcement that we needed some outfit for the deities. So then I was doing some deity worship there, and then some preaching. And then there was a need of doing, and actually I learned very quickly also the dressing of the deities somehow, puja and yag, and I learned everything quickly. And then there was a need of doing a yagya for initiation, but the devotee was usually doing, somehow he didn't, he had some misunderstanding with the person who was going to initiate. I mean, he had told me, I don't really want to do the yagya, and please do it. It was the next day. So he just told me what to do. And the day before, explained everything. And the next day I was doing the yagya.
So, within one day, you went from being a pujari to being a pujari and being a priest.
Yes, basically it was that, because it was not that so many ceremonies were performed. It is New York, and sometimes there's a initiation. Sometimes the Indian community are asking for doing a ceremony for cutting the hair of the child.
So you started doing all of that as well?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah. But in one day I just understood what to do, and then I did it, and then afterwards I learned more.
Okay.
But because being a pujari already, I knew all the mantra for doing Achman and Swastivachan.
So a
I'd
lot
learned
you
it.
already knew because
Yeah,
of the deity
yeah.
worship.
Yes, so it was easy then for me to do to learn that in one day, just lighting the fire, calling Agni Dev, worshipping Agni Dev. Was not a big deal, which I did, and the spiritual master was happy, and the other priest was happy he got off the cook because he didn't want to do it, and I was happy doing it also. Yeah.
So when did you come back to Vrindavan?
Yeah, so I was supposed to be there only for 2 months for Ratha Yatra in New York, which is famous. But then they all pushed me, please stay. You can do deity worship here and you can do the preaching. And then a deal was made because there was one devotee who had some connection with Switzerland and he wanted to go back to Switzerland. So the deal was made with the Swiss temple. I stay and that devotee goes to...
Exchange?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was from Holland actually. Yeah. But Indian origin, or from this Suriname. So there are many, originally Indian origin, but they are in Suriname and then also in Holland. So the exchange was made, and I was there pujari and doing some preaching to the Indian community. Yeah.
And then when did you come to Vrindavan?
So then, but I had a longing to go back to Vrindavan, but and then they didn't let me go. But then at one point, actually on Balaram appearance day, 86 was the 500th anniversary of Mahaprabhu's appearance. So many devotees went, and I stayed back, and I didn't mind. But the next year, 87, I was really feeling I should go back due to different circumstances also. And then on Balaram Purnima, because I joined here, so I had a connection with Gonita, Krishna, Radheshyam. Somehow in the beginning more Krishna Balaram. Because I was, young boy, adventures and friends, and Krishna Balaram are just, in Sakya Raj, they're our friends. And so then on Balaram Purnima, I woke up and I see the deities of Krishna Balaram. And I understood that actually they want me to come back. And now by their grace, I can come back. So then suddenly just things were happening, and the management felt, he has been here serving the deities and preaching, and he wants to go back to India. And actually because it was very austere there also. In the winter, there was less money, and the heating system was not put on, only for the deities. So I got a heavy bronchitis, and I was struggling a little bit also there with my health. So I felt I needed some sun. At first there was too much sun, but when I first came to India, but I recovered. But then there I got a little unwell. But then they felt, the management, he was doing such a nice seva, and for 3 years, and he was supposed to be here only for a little break. And they paid for my ticket, and had a farewell party was there also.
Okay. So then, in which year you came back? In
87.
87.
Yeah, it was just a little after Radhashtami. And yeah.
And then what services were you doing at that time?
Then actually, because I was doing this deity worship there all the time, and actually by Krishna's arrangement, I got Govardhan Chila in New York from one sannyasi. Because he came to Vrindavan and he wanted to come to India. Indian sannyasi, he was doing some preaching. He didn't want to take the Shilas back. So he was asking one devotee, but that devotee, spiritual master said, no, you should not take. You give to Mukunda Datta, he can take care. Although I had enough seva, but still. But then I got the Shilas, And then even I could not do much seva, but then actually I had a dream, and then I was doing the seva in the dream actually. I had so many actually wonderful experiences with the deities, very amazing experiences. And then, so then I came back, I had my shilas, and one sannyasi, I was taking care of his shilas in America, another sannyasi, and then he had also gone to India, and then when he came back as gratitude for my seva, he gave me one shila. And so I couldn't say no.
So you had two shilas then?
I had one big Govardhan and one small Govardhan and one Shaligram.
Okay.
So I came, and then I thought, well, I had enough seva, I was doing deity worship. Although actually they had asked me when I was in New York to become head Pujari in Vrindavan. Because I was in Switzerland, and the devotees who were in Switzerland, one of them who was head Pujari had gone to Vrindavan, and he was impressed by my seva and attitude. And then one other devotee was in New York. We were together, and he came also for the 500th anniversary to Vrindavan. And so he was also impressed by my devotional attitude and deity worship I was doing. So they both suggested to the management, because at that time the head Pujari was there, somehow there was some difficulty, and they asked him to leave, or he left on his own also. It was a famous Omkar, a proper disciple. And then actually they contacted me, but I was brahmachari at that time, and I thought, head Pujari, I'm sure, I knew it means a lot of management, and I was not at all interested in management. So 2 times they asked me, and 2 times I declined. But then I had a dream, and I mean, I didn't know that they wanted me to come here, but just I wanted to go to India, so then I came here. But then, because I was always interested in studying and teaching, also preaching, so then in the Gurukul, and the head Pujari was there in Switzerland, he was actually the principal here in the Gurukul. So he asked me to please come and help with being an ashram teacher. So I became ashram teacher, and I had my shilas, but dealing with the kids, the small kids. I mean, I did it, but also I was not so confident and at ease, because they're trying to pull your legs also, the kids. They were like 10, 12 years old. This age is not so easy.
And your natural inclination was, of course, deity worship, because you had done so much of it.
Yes. So then I was doing for some time, but then they asked me to continue. And then actually my wife, she actually was there as academic teacher. And actually then they had told all the devotees here and the in charge of the different departments that there should be no single woman here living in Vrindavan. Prabhupada's instruction. So my to-be wife was there. I didn't know her. So then they had to get a husband for her. And so I wasn't really planning to get married, but of course attraction is there when you're in a conditioned state. And then, and even one time I expressed to my ashram in charge, there was one ashram in charge, and there was ashram teacher, there were many ashrams, and the head. So one time I explained to him, I'm not sure if I want to continue here. There's so many ladies also who were there in the ashram. And I thought maybe I should just do some traveling. And Dinabandhu Prabhu, at that time he was president, and he actually had asked me, please, maybe you want to join the Sankirtan party. And so I was thinking. But then they were like, no, you just stay here. And then my health again was not so good. And then also visa problem was there. Then they said, well, maybe you can get married and somebody can take care of your health, and then you can get the visa. And I was thinking, well, maybe it could be done. And then they arranged. And they spoke to Gopa Krishna Maharaj. But then I had second thoughts. No, I'm thinking, no, it's not. I shouldn't do that. I was not so convinced. But then they were just pushing me, and then I thought, anyhow, maybe it's.
And you didn't know whom you were going to get married to?
No, I didn't know. It was arranged marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would also be quite different than, I mean, in Switzerland,
right.
people, they find their own husbands and wives. So then how was it to have an arranged
Well,
marriage?
because I had heard about that being
Okay.
here in India, that
Yeah.
there's arranged marriage. So
And you were completely comfortable with the idea of it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Finally, didn't agree, and then it was done, and so, and then I got married, and but then so I was still, we were in the Gurukul, but then. So new situation as a householder, and I was strict brahmachari, and so not a change. And then, as I was saying, I never had any fight with anybody for 20 years, just 2 times with my sister and my mother. So, but then because different nature, I didn't know my wife, she didn't know me, so there was sometimes little different of opinion. But then I thought, it's new situation. Gurukul I also don't really like. But then there was a need of a Pujari for Radheshyam. Because there were different circumstances, and the Pujaris had the difficulty with the head Pujari. There was a little strike, and then they asked Unsini devotee Ainda Prabhu to do the seva. But then one time he did something very special, because he had some rasic inclinations, spontaneous inclinations in the service. Instead of putting the flute in Krishna's hand, he put in Radharani's hand. Radharani stealing the flute. So then the devotees taking darshan, I was there too, and then they chastised him. You cannot do that, that is not proper. And then he was disappointed, and he came to me that day and said, maybe you should just do the seva. I have anyway enough seva. He was in charge of 24-hour kirtan. So then they asked me to be Pujari, and I had known the head Pujari at that time also. And then I was practically his main assistant also. He was managing, and I was seeing the seva on the altar, dressing Radheshyam morning and evening, doing 2-3 artiks, and if somebody was not doing the seva, then I was doing his artik like that. So that was going on then, and then the situation then with, in the ashram, as a householder, then was normalized also with my wife, and then I was happy. She was happy also. She was helping also.
In the DT department?
In DT department, ironing DT's cloth and baking also. And
so it was just the general, in the beginning of marriage, everybody,
right,
there is some...
Yes, because we didn't know each other, and so it was new. Yeah. But then everything was fine.
Okay.
When I joined the DT's department.
And which was in which year? That was
1990 in the May, somehow the summer, the big changes. 1980 I came here, and 1990 after marriage, in 89 I got married, 1990 then I became the Pujari of Radheshyam, and then things were quite smooth,
And we would like to tell everyone that Mukunda Datta Prabhu's wife is Purnima Mataji, and we had her interview already before. So if anybody is interested, they can go and watch it on YouTube as well.
In Hindi.
In Hindi. That one is in Hindi.
Yeah, I speak Hindi also, but we thought it is better I speak in...
Yes, in English.
English, yes, yeah.
Then we can have more can be expressed in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
So, Prabhu, when did you become head Pujari?
Yes, then there was... actually, the management was not so happy with the present head Pujari for some reasons. And then actually there was a little difficulty when the altar was changed. There was a new altar donated, but there was some difficulty there with the deities when they were going to be moved. And because of that, then they decided to remove him. And my name was then put up, but then they thought, because I'm, still not so senior, I was just 31 years old. And so they asked one proper disciple to take the charge, Ayodhyapati Prabhu, who has later on become B.B. Govinda Maharaj, the quite famous now B.B. Govinda Maharaj, an expert kirtanier and great preacher, and he was an extremely good cook also. Yeah, so but he was doing for 2 months, and then he came to me, because at that time still I was assisting and doing practically everything. And he was the head Pujari. But he was saying, dealing with these different pujaris and the Bengalis, the Orias, and then also the suppliers trying to cheat when you buy the things. And he was saying, this is too much for me. I think you should just take over. And some other proper disciples, they also told me, Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu, who just left the body, he had also interest in joining because he was BBD in charge, but he wanted some change and he had experience in cooking. So he offered to cook also for the deities. And my wife, so she had been cooking also. When the previous head Pujari left, she was cooking for 3 months. When Ayodhyapat, Bibi Govinda Maharaj was head Pujari. But then towards the end, then Bhuvaneshwar joined, and then he took over the kitchen as head cook. And then he had asked me also, you please become head Pujari. And then I asked the senior devotees in the community, proper disciples, they all gave their blessings. And then the 1st January 1992, I became head Pujari.
Okay.
So the end of the year will be 30 years completed.
So this year, December, will be 30 years completely.
Yeah, yes.
That's amazing. 3 decades as the head
Yes.
Pujari, and you were already half of your
my
life.
life,
Yes,
yeah.
and you're Prabhu 61 right now.
61, yeah.
Okay. That's such an amazing service and such an
And
amazing
it's
thing.
Prabhupada's mercy
Yes.
that I was able to do that.
So what were the main challenges that you faced as the head Pujari?
Well, as I was saying, I never had any fight with anybody.
Even after becoming head Pujari?
No, I'm saying, as I said, as before becoming a devotee, I never, even as a brahmachari, only one time there was some disagreement, 2 times actually, in 10 years at brahmachari again, 2 times, with the person in New York who was in charge of preaching to the Indians. I mean, I was doing a lot of preaching, I was the deity worship also, and he was a little bit laid back. And one time he said, you should just come to the office more often. I said, well, I'm doing the seva in the morning. So I just disagreed with him. Little argument was there. And one time with the head Pujari also had an argument because I was doing all the seva and a little break. And one time as I was traveling, so maybe 2-3 times I had some little argument, but nothing serious, and then everything was resolved after half a day. But then becoming head Pujari, then the problem started. And, to some extent my nature has changed. Which I basically, which I don't really like, that I get a little more angry. Still, I don't get angry so much, but still, it happens because so many situations are there which I don't agree, and the Pujari is fighting. I try to correct them. So many difficulties are there in management, so I get sometimes angry. So therefore, many times I think, well, it's time for the next stage, Vanaprast, and to distance myself and just do hearing and chanting and preaching, so I can go back to my actual nature of being more peaceful and just minding my business and trying to help others. But in management, it's like almost unavoidable that you have to get angry.
Yeah, well, definitely management is such a thing. But you're there in the management as the head Pujari. So
Yes.
that's like the closest service that somebody can do actually to the deities in the temple.
Right.
So
Therefore, I can be manager. Otherwise, I would never be manager.
that
Even
was
when I
what-
became head Pujari, so I told them I'm not really a manager, so I need somebody to help with management, because I don't want to give up my save of serving Radheshyam. Although now I'm not doing every day, I'm just do 2-3 days, but still I will never give that up. Rather, I give up I will give up the position of head Pujari, and then I will give up dressing Radheshyam and serving them, or doing yagyas and samskars. That actually helped me to keep the balance, doing yagyas and samskars, and doing the actual seva of dressing the deities, doing artik. Then I can just tolerate the management, which is always a headache. And I'm always waiting for the day when I can become free.
So, bro, can you please share a few nice pastimes which you have had being the head Pujari with the deities?
Yes, when I became head Pujari, there were not enough devotees to serve, because there were not so many devotees, not even many visitors at that time. And there was no money in the deity department, even in the temple. So it was maybe 2.5 months before Janmashtami. Then there was no money for making an outfit.
The very first year when you became head Pujari?
Yeah. And then I spoke to the management. Well, we don't have money. That you have to arrange. Then what to do? I go in front of Krishna Balaram. Krishna Balaram, we don't have money. What can I do? I don't know what to do. And please, you arrange. You have to arrange. Otherwise, we have no outfit for you. Please, you arrange. Then 2 days later, one Mataji, proper disciple from America came. What was her name? Lavanga Latika? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, very wonderful devotee. She just left the body also maybe 1 year ago. So she came, and it was in the Gurukul, I still remember. And so she said, I want to give a donation to the deities. I said, oh, yeah, wonderful, good. But I didn't expect after 2 days. And she took out some money from here, like the ladies do in India. The village ladies, they were doing, keeping the money here, very secret place. So she took out the money, and it was exact the money we needed for an outfit.
Amazing.
And it was Jai Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Balaram.
And actually, I mean, sorry to interrupt over here, but we'd also like to tell the devotees watching that a similar incident happened just a few months ago.
Yeah, during COVID, because
Yes.
of COVID, we didn't have so many donors. And then what to do? Then also, well, I thought, well, now we have the internet also, so we just put it up. And because Champakalata, she's my daughter. If you have not
Figured it out by yet.
yeah. And she's now taking care of ISKCON broadcasting. So then I said, well, maybe we can put something up. And then she said, fine. And we put something up. And then
The same day?
the same day, then
we got
devotees
an
coming
outfit?
forward. And
Yeah.
as I was mentioning, there's one girl who had also saw that message, and then she contacted me from Forest Hills,
Aha, okay.
from New York. She contacted me, and she told me I'm the daughter of such and such family. And I remember the family I used to go. There were two main families I used to visit, Ramesh Bhai Patel and Bhikkhu Bhai Patel. And so then she remembered me, and then I remembered, her and the family, and some other families where they also we used to visit, but these are the two main families I remember.
And she's from which family?
Yeah, I mean Ramesh Bhai. I think it's Ramesh Bhai. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yes,
And,
that's amazing how fast Krishna actually arranged things.
That was immediate due to internet, but there it was just 2-3 days later.
Yeah, sometimes people wonder, does God really reciprocate? Does
so
Krishna
I mean,
really?
direct reciprocation.
Yes, and quick,
Yeah,
no
yeah, very
waiting for a
quick.
few years
Yeah.
or something.
And then so life is going on, and then difficulties are there, politics are there, and then some of the pujaris were doing politics against me. And then it was very disturbing. Even I spoke to the management, they couldn't do anything. They were just, well, what can we do? And then as we were doing now, every day we're doing parikrama of the deities, of Prabhupada deity. There's Prabhupada is taking darshan, then there's Guru Puja, and then we take Prabhupada, and then we do parikrama of the temple.
Oh.
So usually I'm on the altar, especially at that time I was every day. Then usually I just come late for the Guru Puja and sometimes something else to do, and practically I never took Prabhupada around. Very rarely. So at that time I was disturbed because of the situation of the pujaris. And then one devotee said, oh, you're just here, it's time to bring Prabhupada for darshan and then go around for parikrama. Please take Prabhupada. So I took Prabhupada in front of Gonitai, Jai Gonitai. Then I go towards Krishna Balaram, and then praying to Krishna Balaram. Oh, so many problems, Krishna, addressing Krishna. And what shall I do? I mean, I'm just thinking, shall I just leave? So what do you want me to do? You want me to leave, or you want me to stay? As I say, you want me to stay, one flower fell from Krishna's turban. So that means actually when a flower is falling, that is auspicious. When a jewel is falling, that is not considered auspicious. So then I was so happy, I said, oh, Krishna, you want me to stay, isn't it? And one more flower fell. So it was confirmed.
2 flowers fell.
Yeah. And then we take darshan of Radhesham, then we go around 3 times to Prabhupada in the Samadhi. And then somehow my heart and my mind became so peaceful. And what happened? The pujaris, for some reason, they were fighting amongst themselves. And they forgot about making politics against me. And it was all solved. Krishna Balaram solved the problem.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can you also tell us some dreams? Because you had a few dreams. You had Krishna Balaram in your dream when you had to come here.
Yeah.
And so, did you have more interesting dreams?
Yeah, I had some interesting dreams also. We shouldn't say so much, but still.
Still one, maybe.
Yeah, one dream was there. Yeah, so we're doing seva in the temple, and my wife was baking also. Maybe at that time more. Now she's baking once a week. At that time, maybe 2-3 times. I think there were 2 or 3 Matajis, and they were good. So she baked some nice cakes, and then then she got some prasad. That's usually the system. What they have baked, they can keep. So we took it home, and then we take rest night time. And then maybe early morning, 2 o'clock, maybe I hear banging on the door outside gate. Not my house, but the gate of the boundary. Oh, we are hungry, we are hungry. And so in the dream, and I see Krishna Balaram there. Oh, Krishna Balaram there. Oh, we wanted some more cake. The cake was so good. And actually, we had the cake in the fridge because we had not taken it in that evening. I was thinking, wow, okay, then I thought. And I woke up then. And then I got up, and then I was looking outside, and while Krishna Balaram, they were gone. But it was a beautiful dream. And so, I mean, ultimately also understanding the Krishna Balaram, they were happy with the cake. So
That's amazing. So we would like to know a little bit more about something about spiritual life, but before that, also family life is important, and
Yes.
Majority of the people are grihasthas.
Yes.
So what would you say, how to have a Krishna conscious married life? What's the secret?
Well, secret is to Krishna conscious means you have to have Krishna in the center. And for that, of course, that means you should worship the deities at home or in the temple. But usually I suggest also for household to have some deities at home, because household life means you will have children. That is usually the scenario. Griha putrahinam griha sunyam, Chanakya Pandit says. If you don't have a child in the house, then the house is empty. And that is usually expected. You get married, and of course to grow in spiritual life, and there's a need. Man needs a woman, and a woman needs a man, basically. And unless one is exceptional, one can be brahmachari and sannyasi, but which is the minority. So then you need children, and it is good for the children to have deities at home also. Then they will learn to respect and have some reciprocation with the deities. So that is extremely important. That actually everyone has to worship the deities, even the brahmacharis, even the sannyasis. But especially for the householders and then the children, it is important to worship the deities. Also at home. They may keep it simple, and then they may do seva in the temple also. But for the children, because the children, they will not be able to relate to the deities in the temple. Big deities, they cannot go close. They cannot do much seva. But at home, then they can do some seva, they can help. So that is very important for householders. And then also, we have to make sure we chant nicely our rounds, and that we hear sufficiently about Krishna, that we study the scriptures every day.
As a family, together.
As a family, and individually and as a family. And we should not just be interested to earn money to maintain the family, but have Krishna in the center. And as Prabhupada used to say, you work as much as to be able to take care of the expenses. No need to accumulate too much money, and simple living, high thinking, also for householders. You may have more clothes, you may have nowadays iPhone or whatever, or computer, but keep it in the limit, the necessities, and try to be more and on the spiritual side, and then you can manage nicely. And then Krishna will help actually to take care of the needs of the householders also in every way. Spiritually speaking and materially speaking also.
And how to raise Krishna conscious children?
How to raise Krishna conscious children? Basically in the beginning, my wife, she was taking more care of the daughter. And but then the only thing which I did, of course, I was doing my deity worship, and then she was
Watching.
and trying to help also a little bit, and I encouraged her. Then we gave her small deities because she was very much eager to have small deities, encouraged in that side. And I just very gently asked her to chant the Maha Mantra. First a little bit, and then when she was 4, giving the Japamala, and you have to chant 1 round very nicely. And then on the 5th anniversary,
5th birthday.
5th birthday, then I told her, now you should chant 1 round every day. And then she even, so she wrote on a piece of paper that I promise that I will chant every day 5 rounds. And then,
5? 1 round.
1 round. And then I signed, and then
it was a kind of a mini contract.
yeah. And the next year also it was extended, and I think it was 2 rounds. And then and she continued, and I always encouraged her to chant every day. Of course, when she was going to school, the 10th for board exams, then it was a little difficult, but always I told her to do a minimum of chanting and depend on Krishna. And I gave her 1 mantra, Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadaliye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. And I used to tell my daughter, Champagalata, before the exam, you chant this mantra and you will get good marks.
And it works.
Yeah, and she always got good marks. She was even first in a few years in the school.
Yeah. No, even I remember very well. I mean, in my spiritual life, my father is definitely one of the biggest inspirations. And he always used to make sure that I'm chanting very, very clearly. That was one thing which has helped me a lot. And helping me remember some shlokas and the Mangalacharan. And yes, really, I mean, I'm very grateful for everything that both my parents have done, really. So anyway, it's more about him. So now talking about the spiritual side of things, what is your favorite limb of devotional service? Like Rupa Goswami has given 64 limbs.
Yes.
But which one is your personal favorite?
Favorite is, chanting holy names, deity worship, and studying the scriptures. These are the main 3 limbs.
Yeah. Okay. So, and which book is your favorite?
Which book is my favorite? Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Jai.
The other books also which I like, but basically, as my basic book is Chaitanya Charitamrita. I read it 10 times in English, 2 times in Hindi completely, and all the shlokas in Bengali also. And still continuing. Now I'm giving classes also on the Chaitanya Charitamrita twice a week.
There are so many more things to ask from Mukunda Datta Prabhu, but unfortunately the time is running out. We already started late because the first video was, the sound quality was not so good. So we'll have to stop over here. And I mean, there's still many questions. I would have loved to ask him many things which you could have learned more from him. But just the very last question, and after which we'll stop, is that what advice would you give people in general about how to improve their spiritual lives?
How to improve the spiritual life? That is also the 64 limbs of devotional service are there. The first is Guru Padashray, take shelter of the spiritual master. And then the 5 most important limbs are there. I mentioned, which I like, is Nam Kirtan, chanting holy names, Bhagavad Shravan, studying or hearing the scriptures, Priti Purvak Murti Seva, and then of course included is Dham Seva also. And then the 5th one is Sadhu Sangha, association with the devotees. That is very important. Especially those who are more advanced, you should be in their association. Then you can chant better the holy names, then you can understand the scriptures, and then you can nicely engage in deity worship. And so in the association with the devotees, then you can grow very nicely up to the stage when you can practically stand on your own feet. But then still we will always try to seek the guidance of those who are more advanced, who are physically present and in a purified state. Then you can pray also to the spiritual master in the heart to Rupa Goswami, because we are known as Rupanuga Vaishnavas. So we have to take shelter of the Gurujan, of the spiritual masters. That is most important.
So association is the most important, and through these interviews we are giving all of you an opportunity to get to know the devotees better, because it is always a big encouragement for our own spiritual lives to hear about the lives of other Vaishnavas and how they have advanced and made so much progress in their own personal and spiritual lives. So it was amazing to hear about you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Okay, just one more thing I would like to say. I mean, we start in the beginning, it's actually by Prabhupada's mercy that we came in contact to Krishna consciousness, because he spread it in the West, and so we came to know about ISKCON, about Krishna consciousness through Srila Prabhupada. And so therefore at the end again we have to say that it is only by Prabhupada's mercy we are able to continue, and we can advance in our spiritual life. And also one more point, when the difficulties were there as head Pujari with the management problems, politics, and besides Krishna Balaram, a few times I prayed to Prabhupada, and actually Prabhupada appeared to me in dreams also, a few times, just encouraging me and giving his blessings upon me so I can continue the seva. And many times I'm feeling why I'm taking this problem of managing this department, which is such a headache, and sometimes I feel now it's time to leave and take sannyasa or whatever, or vanaprast. But I just continue with one more reason, is I feel so much indebted to Prabhupada, and we can never repay our debt to Prabhupada. But I feel so much indebted to Prabhupada and grateful, and therefore indebted to him, and therefore I'm continuing just for his pleasure. So, and I'm feeling so much grateful to Prabhupada.
Jai, thank you very much. Jai
Hare
Shri
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please join us for our next interview, which will be on next Thursday. So see you all then. Hare Krishna.